3:15 in the morning. You're awake again, feeling your way along the wall to the bathroom in the dark, and you already know this is the second time tonight. Maybe the third. Here's what almost nobody tells you. For a huge number of people over 50, the real problem was never how much water you drink before bed. And drinking less at night, the advice you've heard 100 times, can quietly make the whole thing worse. Over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you the 4 hidden triggers most people never check, and then the exact daily rhythm that can take you from 3 or 4 trips a night towards sleeping the whole way through. I've worked in emergency medicine for a long time, and I want to be honest with you about why this topic matters more than it looks. People don't usually come into the emergency department and say the words, "I keep getting up to pee." They come in after a fall. They got up at 2 in the morning. The room was dark, the floor was cold, they were half asleep, and they went down. Sometimes it's just a bruise, sometimes it's a broken wrist, and sometimes, in an older adult, it's a broken hip. And that broken hip changes the rest of their life. So when we talk about getting up to urinate at night, we are not talking about a small annoyance. Doctors writing in American Family Physician in 2025 estimated that falls and injuries tied to nighttime urination cost the United States around $1.5 billion a year. This is a safety issue, an independence issue, and a sleep issue all at once. And the good news, which I'll keep coming back to, is that for most people it can be improved without a single new pill. Let me give this a name first, because naming it helps. In medicine, we call getting up at night to urinate Nocturia, and it is not rare. That same review found that more than 30% of people over 60 deal with it, and the number climbs the older you get. So, if this is you, you are not broken, and you are certainly not alone. You're in the majority. Now here's the part that changes everything. And it's the reason so many people white-knuckle their way through this for years without getting better. Most people treat nighttime urination as a bladder problem. Just a bladder that's gotten weak or small or cranky. And sometimes the bladder is part of it. But very often the bladder is just the messenger. The real driver is somewhere else entirely. And if you only shrink your water bottle, you'll never touch the actual cause. So before I give you the daily method, I want to walk you through the 4 hidden triggers I wish more people knew to check. I'm going to rank them, roughly, from the ones people never suspect to the ones they underestimate. Stay with me, because the first one is the single most overlooked cause I see, and it has almost nothing to do with your bladder. Let's start with what's happening as we age, quickly, because it sets up everything else. 3 things shift. First, your bladder. Think of it like a balloon that's been inflated and emptied for 60, 70 years. Over time, it loses a little of its stretch. It holds a bit less, and it starts sending the "I'm full" signal sooner, sometimes when it's really only part full. Second, and this is bigger, your body's fluid clock shifts. When you were young, your kidneys held on to fluid overnight and let most of it go during the day when you were upright and awake. As we get older, that rhythm can flip. The kidneys start making more urine at night. There's even a name for it. It's called nocturnal polyuria, which simply means too much urine made at night. And it turns out this, not a weak bladder, is one of the most common reasons older adults are up at 2 a.m. Third, your daytime habits quietly come due at night. The coffee, the afternoon iced tea, the salty lunch, the glass of wine with dinner. Your kidneys are still sorting all of that out hours later, right when you're trying to sleep. Hold on to that idea of a fluid clock, because every hidden trigger I'm about to show you is really a story about that clock running at the wrong time. Hidden trigger number 1, and the one that stuns people, is your breathing. Specifically, a condition called obstructive sleep apnea, where the airway keeps collapsing during sleep and you stop breathing for short stretches, over and over, without ever fully waking up. Here's the connection almost nobody makes. When you stop breathing and your oxygen dips, the pressure inside your chest changes, and your heart releases a hormone. The name is a mouthful. Atrial natriuretic peptide. So let's just call it the drain the tank hormone. Because that's what it does. It tells your kidneys, right now, in the middle of the night, to dump sodium and water. Your kidneys obey, your bladder fills, and you wake up sure that the problem is your bladder. It isn't. It's your airway. And this is not a rare footnote. Up to half of people with obstructive sleep apnea have nocturia. Let me put it plainly. If you snore loudly, if you wake up unrefreshed, if someone has told you that you stop breathing at night, and you're also getting up 2 or 3 times to urinate, those two things may be the same problem wearing 2 different costumes. And here's the hopeful part, the part I'd want a family member to hear. When sleep apnea is treated, often with a CPAP machine that keeps the airway open, a lot of people find their nighttime bathroom trips drop right alongside their snoring. So the action step here is simple and specific. If that description sounds like you, don't just cut your water. Ask your doctor about a sleep study. You might be chasing your bladder when the answer is in your breathing. If there's one thing in this whole video you send to someone you love, let it be this part. Hidden trigger number 2 is your blood sugar. When blood sugar runs high, and this happens in diabetes that isn't fully controlled, the extra sugar spills into your urine, and sugar drags water along with it like a magnet. Doctors call this osmotic diuresis, but the everyday version is easy. Too much sugar in the system means too much urine, day and night, usually with a thirst you can't quite satisfy. So if your nighttime trips came on alongside being thirsty all the time, unexpected weight loss, or blurry vision, that combination deserves a simple blood test. This isn't meant to scare you. Most nighttime urination is not diabetes. But it's a 5-minute check that occasionally catches something important early. And catching it early is exactly when it's easiest to handle. Notice the pattern already forming? 2 triggers in, and neither one is really about your bladder. This is why just drink less fails so many people. Hidden trigger number 3 is one you may be doing to yourself without knowing it, and it's your medication timing. A lot of people over 50 take a water pill, a diuretic for blood pressure or for the heart. That pill does exactly what its name says. It opens a floodgate and moves fluid out through your kidneys. Now picture taking that pill in the early evening. You've just told your kidneys to run the floodgate at full blast right as you're heading to bed. The fluid comes out over the next several hours, which is to say, all night. Here's the fix. And I want to be careful because this is important. Do not change your medication on your own. But do bring this exact question to your doctor or pharmacist. Ask whether your water pill could be taken earlier, sometime in the afternoon, maybe around 6 hours before bed, so the flood happens while you're up and moving instead of while you're trying to sleep. For a lot of people, that one timing change, decided with their doctor, is the difference between 2 trips and none. It costs nothing. It's just moving a pill from one part of the day to another. Hidden trigger number 4 is your legs. This one is subtle and genuinely clever once you see it. If you're on your feet during the day, or even just sitting upright a lot, gravity pulls fluid down into your ankles and lower legs. You might notice it as swelling, socks leaving a dent, shoes feeling tight by evening. Think of your lower legs as a reservoir that fills up while you're vertical. Then you lie down flat to sleep. Gravity lets go. All that pooled fluid flows back into your circulation. Your kidneys finally get their hands on it, and they turn it into urine while you sleep. So you get up at 2, and it feels like a bladder problem, but really it was a plumbing and gravity problem that started at 4 in the afternoon. And that gives us a beautiful action step, because you can beat gravity earlier in the day on your terms. I call it the afternoon anti-gravity hour. Sometime in the late afternoon or early evening, well before bed, lie back and put your legs up above the level of your heart for 15 or 20 minutes. Add a short walk if you can, because your calf muscles act like a pump that pushes that fluid back up and out. And for some people, especially those with real ankle swelling, Compression socks worn during the day keep the reservoir from filling in the first place. The whole idea is to empty the leg reservoir during daylight, on purpose, so it isn't sitting there waiting to flood your bladder at midnight. If you deal with swollen ankles, this one tip alone can change your nights. Now, I can hear the objection because I've heard it from patients 100 times. I already stopped drinking after dinner and it didn't fix anything. And now you know exactly why. If your real trigger is your breathing, or your blood sugar, or the timing of a water pill, or fluid pooling in your legs, then shrinking your evening water was never going to touch it. You were treating the messenger. That's not a failure on your part. Nobody handed you the map. So let's fix that. Here is the map. The daily rhythm, because alongside checking those 4 triggers, there absolutely is a way to drink and eat and move across your day that steadies your fluid clock, and it comes down to 5 simple rules. Let me rank them the way I'd want my own parent to hear them, because not all 5 carry equal weight. The 2 with the biggest payoff for the least effort are actually rules 3 and 4, caffeine timing and sodium timing. So if you only change 2 things, change those. But together, all 5 form one smooth rhythm. Rule 1. Front-load your water. Aim to drink most of your day's fluid, roughly 70 to 80% of it, between when you wake up and about 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Here's the piece people miss. Drinking earlier doesn't just move the trips earlier. When you stay evenly hydrated through the day, your urine stays dilute and gentle. When you go the other way and ration water hard, your urine gets concentrated, and concentrated urine actually irritates the bladder lining. An irritated bladder sends that urgent "go now" signal even when it's barely full. So starving yourself of water can backfire and give you more trips, not fewer. A full glass is about 8 ounces. An easy way to do this is to link water to things you already do. A glass when you wake, a glass with breakfast, refill at lunch, one more mid-afternoon. By dinner, you're already caught up, not gulping to catch up. Rule 2. The 2-hour wind down. Starting about 2 hours before bed, ease off fluids. Not a hard stop, and not white-knuckling through thirst. A few sips are fine, especially if you take an evening medication. But this isn't the hour for a full glass of water, a mug of tea, or a bowl of soup. Think of it like a faucet you're slowly turning down, not slamming shut. Your kidneys respond far better to a gentle taper than to a sudden cutoff. Rule 3. And this is one of your 2 biggest levers. Watch caffeine and alcohol. Both are diuretics. They pull more fluid out of you than they put in, and that effect lingers for hours. That 3 o'clock coffee or iced tea can still be nudging your kidneys at 10 p.m. And alcohol is the sneaky one. That evening glass of wine feels relaxing, but it's one of the most common and most overlooked reasons for a 2 a.m. trip. Partly because it also loosens the hormone that normally tells your kidneys to hold fluid overnight. So try to make your last caffeinated drink no later than early afternoon. And if you enjoy a drink in the evening, experiment with moving it earlier or having it on fewer nights, and simply watch what your nights do in response. Rule 4. The other big lever, and the one almost nobody's ever told. Sodium timing. When you eat a salty meal, your body has to hold on to extra water to balance all that salt in your blood. And it lets that water go hours later, often right in the middle of the night. So the trick isn't just eating less salt, it's when you eat it. Make dinner your lightest meal for salt, and shift your saltier foods to lunch, when you've got a whole afternoon of daylight and movement to process them. A lighter, lower-salt dinner is one of the most underrated tools for a quiet night, and hardly anyone gets told about it. Brighten your dinner with lemon, herbs, garlic, a little vinegar instead of reaching for the salt shaker, and your bladder will thank you at 3 in the morning. Rule 5. Elevate and empty. The last 2 steps before you lie down. You've already met the leg elevation idea, so weave it in here. If you deal with swelling, that afternoon or early evening stretch with your legs up pays off now. And then, right before you get into bed, Fully empty your bladder, and don't rush it. Give it a moment. Relax. Let it finish. Rushing leaves a little urine behind, and a bladder that starts the night partly full simply fills to the trigger point sooner. Some people find it helps to sit and try again a few minutes later, a technique called double voiding, to make sure the tank really is empty before sleep. Now let me give you the tool that ties all of this together and turns you from a guesser into a detective. It's called a bladder diary, and it's the same thing we ask patients to do in clinic. For 2 or 3 days, keep a small notebook or a note on your phone. Every time you drink, jot down roughly how much and when. Every time you urinate, day and night, mark the time and, if you can, the rough amount. Note when you go to bed and when you wake. That's it. In just 3 days, patterns jump off the page. You'll see whether your big trips are tied to that evening soup or that late coffee, or whether they're happening no matter what you drink, which points more toward your kidneys or your breathing. And there's a specific number doctors look for. If more than about 1/3 of all the urine you make in a full day is being made at night, that's that nocturnal polyuria we talked about. A real, nameable pattern with real treatments. You don't have to calculate anything perfectly. Just bringing 3 days of honest notes to your doctor can shortcut weeks of guessing. Let me put this into the shape of an ordinary day so you can picture yourself doing it. You wake up and have a glass of water before your coffee, because a night of sleep leaves most of us a little dry. Through the morning and into the early afternoon, you sip steadily, water, herbal tea, whatever you like, aiming to have most of your fluid in by mid-afternoon. At lunch, if you're going to have something salty, this is the meal for it. Early afternoon is your last coffee. Late afternoon, you take 20 minutes with your legs up and maybe a short walk to drain the leg reservoir before evening. Dinner is lighter on salt, brightened with lemon and herbs. 2 hours before bed, you ease off fluids to small sips, and right before you lie down, you empty your bladder fully, without rushing. None of this is about being perfect. It's about rhythm. Even getting 3 or 4 of these right consistently tends to show up within 1 to 2 weeks. Before I let you go, I want to be very clear about when this crosses from a habits problem into a see someone problem, because I never want to leave you managing something at home that deserves a real look. Here's the ladder. If your nighttime trips are stable and mild, start with the bladder diary and the daily rhythm and give it 2 weeks. If you're not seeing change, bring your diary to your primary care doctor and ask about the 4 triggers: sleep apnea, blood sugar, your medication timing, and leg swelling. Move faster, book a visit soon rather than waiting if you also snore heavily or stop breathing at night, or if you're newly thirsty all the time. And treat these next ones as urgent, meaning get seen the same day at urgent care or the emergency department. Don't just watch them. Blood in your urine. Burning, pain, or fever along with the urination. Sudden swelling in one leg but not the other, especially with pain, because that can signal a clot. Or suddenly not being able to urinate at all despite feeling full. Those are not wait-and-see symptoms. And if something feels frightening or severe, call 911 rather than driving yourself. For the vast majority of you, none of these apply, and the daily rhythm plus a conversation with your doctor is the whole story. But you deserve to know where the line is. So let's bring it home. If you remember nothing else tonight, remember this. Getting up at night is usually not a bladder that's failing you. It's a fluid clock running at the wrong time, and 4 hidden triggers you can actually check. Your breathing, so ask about a sleep study if you snore. Your blood sugar, so get a simple test if you're thirsty and going all the time. Your medication timing, so ask your doctor whether your water pill can move earlier. And your legs, so drain that reservoir in the afternoon with your feet up. Layer on the daily rhythm. Water early, taper late. Caffeine and alcohol early, salt at lunch, not dinner. Legs up in the afternoon, bladder fully empty at night. And keep a 3-day diary so you're working from facts, not fear. I know how heavy this gets. I know what it is to dread your own bed because you already know you'll be up in a few hours, and how that wears on you, not just in your body but in your mind. You deserve a full, unbroken night, not someday, starting this week. So here's my challenge. Pick this method up for just 7 days, not perfectly, just consistently, and keep that little diary alongside it. Write down how many times you're up on night 1 and how many times you're up on night 7. Most people are genuinely surprised by the drop, and a lot of that comes just from finally treating the right cause. If this helped you, the kindest thing you can do is send it to someone you love who's been quietly exhausted, especially if they snore, because that one trigger changes lives once it's found. Take care of yourself, and here's to your best night of sleep in a long, long time.